Back now to our facilitator, Pam Jacobs, for questions.
Thanks, Gwen. In fact, we've got all of our participants today are going to be unmuted, and we've got questions coming in. Keep on sending those into the chat. But let me go ahead and start with the first question. Of the three programs, the four presenters today, I'd like to have you reflect on what suggestions you have for others who are participating in our webinar today who might be wanting to administer the survey, and what advice do you have for them, either about how to administer to get good results or time of year or anything like that. Dawn and Michelle, let's start with one of you.
Yeah, thank you for that question. We tossed that around quite a bit on what was a good time, and there really is not, doesn't seem to ever be a great time. But if you have the opportunity like we did where teachers were coming together face to face, we really emphasized with them that this would be coming out soon, that it was really important for them to take it because this was going to set the stage for their professional learning, and we really wanted them to understand that we were going to take this data seriously, and every time we or made a policy or a procedure change, we were going to connect it back to this is what you said in the survey, and this is why we're going forward or progressing that way. Suggestions for the survey, I would say really be clear. We had talked to some more about defining structured and unstructured PD just a little bit more, perhaps giving them a few more examples of what might be possible in those categories.
And you had a really high turnout. All three programs had really high turnout as far as response rate of their teachers. So any tricks other than saying we're going to use this information for our future PD?
This is Dawn from Wisconsin Virtual School. Michelle and I looked at each other and smiled a little bit. This is one case in which we really didn't have to use any incentives. Our teachers really took some ownership of this when we, as Michelle said, we explained the importance of it and how it would really drive our professional learning opportunities and what we could do to help them individually as well. So we smiled in the fact that, well, we didn't have to do gift cards or a raffle or anything. They really went ahead and took the opportunity.
I'm going to throw the question to our researchers. As far as they had a really good success rate in all three of these programs in getting the survey administered and returned. Any guidance you can give from your side of things as a researcher to make sure that you have enough results back or interpretation of results? Jackie, Aaron, what would you say to folks who are going to administer?
Sure, this is Erin. I think, what Dawn and Michelle said is a big thing in terms of people feeling that their opinions are valued and actually going to be used. I think on the logistics side, Dawn and Michelle and Marcel and Gwen, you reminding them to participate, reminding them in the email in which it comes out what the purpose is, and then how they're going to see the results. Because sometimes even if decisions are being made on people's survey responses, they don't ever get to see the results. So I think presenting back to your teachers can be a good way of getting people to respond in the future as well.
Thanks. Gwen, there's a question for you that came in. You were talking about the weekly web check. Would you describe that in a bit more detail?
We have a full-time teacher. Most of our teachers are part-time, but we do have one full-time teacher who assists us with teacher evaluation. She helps with working with our mentors. In our program, every new teacher is assigned a mentor for at least one full year, and maybe longer, depending upon their strengths and weaknesses and their wishes to want to continue with a mentor for another year. But we just sort of stumbled on the web checks because we felt like, we had a significant number of children who did not engage. And we looked at the research about that had come from the survey about when when students engage and when they slack off and so forth. And we, like I said, we realized that early engagement was a really big deal. So anyway, Gail, are the person I'm referring to, and several others just randomly check students' participation levels, coaches' participation levels, and kind of take a look at how well they're doing, how far behind they are, or how far ahead. So it gives us an opportunity to not let something slide, either with our own teacher or with the student. We may have a teacher who we see is not responding to a student quickly, or is not grading their work within the designated amount of time that we would like them to respond. So that gives us a chance to just, and it's not a gotcha sort of a thing. It's gently reach out to the teacher, because they're used to talking to their mentors and Gail all the time, and just say, find out if there are any issues or anything we can do, or to provide further support. So it's really kind of working out very well. I'm curious to see if it will continue. Like I said, we've only been doing this for one semester, so I would like to see how this continues on down the road. But the teachers seem to actually welcome the intercession sometime, if you will, so that they feel supported with the coaches. You don't always have the strongest coach, and it kind of allows somebody else sometimes to intercede and give the student or the district a nudge to remind them that, the student may tell you everything is fine, but you need to go in and check for yourself, which the coaches have the authority to do, and to see, are they really doing well?
We've got a question coming in, I think, for all the programs about, all of you mentioned that you have outside course providers, and I think they're talking about for the students. So if you wouldn't mind telling just real quickly who maybe your major course provider is if you're purchasing from outside, just to answer that question. Gwen, for those you're purchasing.
Sure. Yes, we actually did an RFP that allowed us to work with more than one provider. So the majority of our courses come from Florida Virtual. Our most used courses, the highest percentage of course enrollments we have, are with world languages, and we use Middlebury Interactive for those courses, and we have a few K-12 courses. The Florida Virtual courses we purchase in perpetuity, the others we license.
Arthur, how about for your program? Who are you purchasing from primarily?
For our distance learning, for the high school credits that we have, we primarily use Apex Learning for our course content.
Okay. And Wisconsin, how about you?
We're using 8 national content providers, much like Marcel and Gwen had mentioned, and we also are doing some shared content course development with some of the Virtual School Leadership Alliance, so some other state programs. We've been doing some co-development with them and sharing of courses, but primarily 8 national providers of the names which you've already heard.
We've got some questions coming in that are fairly similar about the demographics of your student population and whether it makes a difference in who succeeds or who doesn't, whether you have that stat. So John and Michelle, do you have demographic information about the students taking your courses?
We do track demographics of our students. We survey them at the end of their course, and we also serve that local education guide Gwen had mentioned to that local mentor or coach at the district who helps facilitate and act as a liaison between our online teacher and the student. And from that, we know that the #1 reason that students will take a course through us is simply because it's not offered locally. So when you think about that, we potentially have students that have a little bit of a high motivation because it's a course they can't get, or have a schedule conflict and they really need to get for their graduation requirements or their academic career plans, whatever they might be doing. So that's our general population. We know, and I'm sure the other programs know as well, that this isn't strictly an asynchronous online course like we provide. It's not for all students. We find that they really need that local education guide support. They need an experienced online teacher to help engage them. And then when you get right down to the type of student, they have to have some self-motivation, be an independent learner, you know, initiate and advocate for themselves by reaching out to their teachers. So that's a little bit what we know about our students, and primarily we serve a lot of juniors and seniors in high school, a little bit less on the middle school range.
Martha, what do you know about the demographics, special ed or free reduced lunch eligibility or anything like that for your students? Martha, can you hear?
Yep, we don't keep track of some of that information because again we're partnering with the K-12 district, and from the college we don't ask for that demographic information. I would kind of concur with what Dawn said, that the motivation level of the student has a good indicator of whether or not they'll be successful. Having now served on the REL for a number of years, I know that that's a correlation and not a causation. One of the things that you learn with working with researchers is what can you conclude from information that's out there. But yeah, like I said, we don't have it pulled from demographics in particular. Really, it's more like I said when we look at those reasons why the student's taking the course.
When I'm getting a question here that I think fits your program, and then a little bit more even about the web check. The things for student success. You talked about the student coach. So talk just a little bit more about it. Dawn and Michelle referenced that as well. People call it different things at the local level. What kind of support is it that you're expecting a local district who is having a student enroll in an ILO course? What are they expected to do to make sure the student is successful?
We actually have a coach training and a coach's manual, but generally I like to call it a cross between a mom and a drill sergeant. The coach is a person who has, it doesn't have to be a teacher, but it must be a district employee. It should be someone who sees that student and can communicate with them frequently, even on a daily basis. The person serves as their advocate if they are having technical issues. Maybe the course is not loading correctly, or they can't figure out how to send a message, that sort of thing. They also might serve an advocacy role if the student for some reason is having a conflict with the teacher, or the teacher's not being responsive, or they feel that there's something that's unfair, or they're being bullied, etc. But the mom part comes in the fact that they have that relationship. They are constantly talking to both the student and the teacher, the ILO teacher, via email or however they best like to communicate. They are checking on the student's progress. They're there to say, if Joe just sort of drops off the planet, when we call that, they're our point of contact. We call the coach and say, we haven't heard from Joe in 5 days, is there a problem? And then we can work with that coach as an advocate to try to work with Joe if he's had a death in the family, if he's been adjudicated, whatever the case may be, or if he's just sloughing off, basically have her or him, whoever the coach might be, really have a sit down with them and explain how important this is, and that he must not fall behind, because then it will be extraordinarily difficult to catch up. Coaches are not paid by Iowa Learning Online. It's the responsibility of the district. They agree to it when they sign a student up with us. There have been cases, very few, but there have been cases where a coach, we have had to call a district and say, we will we will not be able to work with this coach because they are not doing their duty. You need to find someone else to fulfill that because it's unfair to the student. So I'd say the coach and early and consistent engagement would be, in my view, the two highest predictors of a student's success in a course.
Thank you, Gwen. I know all three programs mentioned that the predominant PD was obtained by teachers while they were teaching online or after they started teaching online. So we have a question about who now is delivering or directing that online PD for your program. Gwen, you want to start? How do teachers take PD if they're teaching for you now?
Well, we usually require that they take one PD course that relates to online learning before they come to us. And they often get that through either a college or university, or most likely through one of our regional service agencies that provide a lot of professional development for teachers. There are several courses that they can participate in. We also have PD that we deliver on our own, and primarily it's customized to the things that we need our teachers to do or to things that they don't understand how to do, that they're not doing. New, when we have, like now we're implementing, in the process of beginning to implement a new learning management system. So we will do a tremendous amount of PD for them. We have also purchased some hours of professional development from the vendor so that they can have a little professional development, a little time to poke around with whatever it is we want them to learn, and then time to come back to us and receive additional professional development.
Marcel, how about you? How is PD delivered?
We've got kind of a couple different options that are available to students. So like Gwen mentioned, we will refer our instructors to the items that are available through the educational service agencies or the Iowa AEA PD Online, because they have a lot of good tools and resources there. We also, with our contract with our vendor, usually contract for a few hours each year, and we can look at things like our survey results and talk to our vendor and say, can you do some training for us based on your best practices and your information you have from other schools and entities that use your product to help us out with that. We do some local pieces within our own with Brandy, who is our instructor coordinator. We'll work with our instructors on some topics and give them information. We also then have the ability to connect with the college as a whole. At Kirkwood, we have what's called KSUT, which is a Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching. And they do a variety of different workshops that are available for our credit instructors, not just our non-credit or our high school level instructors, but they can connect to those pieces as well. Some of those are done face-to-face, others are done in a blended or in an online model.
And
Thanks,
this is Gwen. I might add that a piece I forgot, we do bring them all together because they're all across the state face-to-face 1 or 2 days during the summer. So they probably enjoy that the most. I'm not sure it's necessarily the most effective of all the PD we provide, but they certainly do enjoy it, and it's good for them to get together.
And we are almost out of time, so I can't turn back to Donna Michelle to get that answer, but if we could go to the next slide. For those of you who did not get your questions answered, my email address is on the bottom right-hand of the slide. Send your questions to me. If you know who you want to address them to, feel free to do that, or just throw the question out there and we will get back in touch with you in response. And again, in a day or so, we will be following up with an email. We want to hear from you about your thoughts of today's webinar, and so we'll send you a link so you can do an evaluation for us. It helps us plan future events. And again, on behalf of REL Midwest and the Virtual Education Research Alliance, thank you so much for joining us today. Send those questions along that we didn't get answered. Bye-bye.